My name is Neil Kelleher. I had a request from one reader. She has a slip disc or a protruding disc between T4 and T5. Sorry, not T4, T5, L4 and L5, and she's asking for any exercises that I might recommend to help prevent the leg pain that she has because of that slip disc. So I have no personal experience of slip disc, at least not that I'm aware of. So these are exercises that I thought may help. I cannot guarantee them. Also, I'm not a trained doctor or anything. This is just based on my own experience of working with my body, learning to feel it and control it. Most or all of these exercises are done while standing, and part of that is my own understanding of the body is that the hip and the low back, the muscles that work on both of those joints actually interconnect or intertwine. And so for long-term hips, low back health, I'd recommend working on the legs at the same time. And so all of these exercises for the low back for correcting slip disc pain are done while standing or perhaps while sitting. So just a quick overview. To start off with, you can have your knees bent, feet about hip width apart. And the very first exercise is simply tilting the pelvis forward and back while focusing on feeling the lumbar spine. The next exercise is a slow twist. And again, keeping the knees bent, you can focus on twisting from the bottom upwards. So maybe about here twisting, and here twisting. And the idea is to move slowly so that you can actually or imaginarily feel your lumbar spine, the actual vertebrae of the lumbar spine twisting as you turn your body. What else you can do to, again, this is working on hip stability, is to do the same exercises while standing on one leg. So shifting your weight to one leg. You can have the other leg touching the floor, but all of the weight is on one leg, and do the same exercise. Tilt your pelvis slowly backwards so that your lumbar spine rounds, and then tilt your pelvis forward so that your lumbar spine arches backwards. And then do that any number of times or as much as you can on one leg, and then shift legs. Slowly tilt forward and back. And then do the same with twisting. Shift your weight onto one leg, and actually you'll do this on both sides. Slowly working on the lumbar spine, twist to one side, to the same side as your supporting leg. Relax, and then turn to the other side. Try to keep your hips square to the front as much as you can, and then repeat that on the other side. Another exercise you can do, and this one there is no jump straight to standing on one leg. So stand on one leg, turn the leg out 90 degrees, the non-weighted leg out 90 degrees. You can move it out further or in closer. And from here, use this leg, try to lift this hip, slowly go up and slowly go down. So as you're doing this, you're again focused on feeling your lumbar spine, lift the hip and then lower. You can do the same thing with the leg internally rotated. Let the hip sink down, weight on this leg, slowly lift the hip, and then lower. One other standing on one leg exercise is a variation of this stretch, where you pull the knee in, but instead done while standing. And here, place the ankle on top of the knee, push the knee back, slowly bend forwards. If you can touch your hands to the floor. If you can't touch the floor, don't worry about it. You can use a chair. So from here, bend forward, place your hands on the chair, and then to go deeper, slowly bend your elbows. Another variation, you can, in this pose, maybe round the lower back or arch it. And that could be the exercise actually. Use a support if you like. So round the back and then arch it, and gradually work at having less and less weight on your arms. And just as a note, if you find pain doing this pose, you may find it helpful to press your hands down into a surface like a table so that there's less weight on your upper body. That may help you to relax your lower back, so that if you're doing this exercise or even twisting, you may find that gives you a little bit more control. Going back to this stretch, again, feel your lower back, find a position that's comfortable, and then from there you can turn towards the lifted leg side, again focusing on your lumbar spine, and you can also, turn away from it. Use a chair for support, or if you like, take the arms away. Going a little bit more deeper, and I'm not sure how keen I am on this exercise or not, but with one foot turned out to the side, this is a variation of the half moon pose. You can place your hand on a table, kitchen countertop, wherever you have room. Roll the top hip back. And here you can lift this hip higher and then lower it. And as you do so, notice how your lumbar spine is bending. So from this position, lift the hip higher. So that's actually bending the lumbar spine upwards, and then lower it. If you like a variation, you could try with the knee bend, so there's a little bit less effort. You can try externally rotating the lifted leg, or internally rotating. Internally rotating, this hip is going to go forward a little bit. So you can try like that. So in general, all of these movements are movements that affect the lumbar spine in some way, whether bending it forward or backwards, twisting it, or bending it from side to side, and all done with weight on both legs or one leg. And the idea there is to develop some awareness of the lumbar spine, but also some control. If you do all of the movements slowly and smoothly, hopefully you can stop if there's pain, and you can see if there's a way you can adjust the tension either in your hips. So for example, you might try and squeezing the outer hips a little bit as you're doing this action, or even turning. You might try engaging the inner thighs as well. But in all cases, you can play with the tension in your legs to see if you can get better control or a pain-free situation in your lumbar spine. You may even find that you address the imbalance that caused the slip disc in the first place. So just in a little bit more depth, the first exercise, feet about hip width apart or shoulder width, outer edges of the feet parallel, knees comfortably bent. And in this position, I'd suggest maybe having a little bit of tension in the outer hips above the top of the thigh bone. So in this region, hip crest, thigh bones in this region, maybe squeezing a little bit. And then from there, let your tailbone move down. And feel your lumbar spine curving. Then move your tailbone up and move slowly. If you need to stop, or if you feel pain, then stop what you're doing. Maybe change the amount of movement. When I'm doing this exercise, although I said activating the outer hip, I am actually using my butt a little bit. There's a little bit of tension there, but it's not super squeezed. What you can do is change your focus. You could focus initially on your tailbone, lift your tailbone, lower your tailbone, or change focus so that maybe you're more inclined to use the abs, focus on your pubic bone, lift your pubic bone up. Try to avoid a strong clenching of the abs. Try to use minimum effort to pull your pubic bone up, and then move your pubic bone down. So both have the same effect. So you try first focusing on the sacrum, and then focus on the pubic bone. So here again, lift the sacrum, curl the lumbar spine backwards, drop the sacrum, bend the lumbar spine forwards. Or lift the pubic bone, bend the lumbar spine forwards, drop the pubic bone, arch the back. Try the same exercise with your weight on one leg, exact same thing as before. One of the things that you might try changing is, because your weight's on one leg, you may find a tendency to either lift the non-weighted side or lower it. And I'd suggest trying the exercise with the hip lifted and with it lowered, just to see how it feels. If it feels good, then you can use it. So it's just a way of varying the exercise, taking your body through a fuller range of motion. So with the hip lift, with the hip dropped, the non-weighted hip drop, pull the pubic bone up and then lower it, and then focus on the sacrum, drop the sacrum down, and then lift the sacrum. Then switch legs. For the twist, the area of focus again is the lumbar spine. So all of these exercises, you're focused on the lumbar spine. You're trying to feel the 5 vertebrae moving with respect to each other. The twist may be a little bit difficult. Initially, find a position where lift your tailbone and then drop it, and find a position where either side of your lower back feels open. That can be your starting position for twisting, and then gently from there turn your rib cage, but try and feel, say, the bottommost lumbar vertebrae turning, then the next one up, then the next one up. There are 5 in total, and then relax, and then turn to the other side. So most of this is happening in my rib cage, but at the same time I'm trying to focus on my lumbar spine so that the lumbar spine turns as my rib cage turns. So move slowly. You could also focus, so if you're turning to the right, you could imagine feeling each side of the each lumbar vertebrae. So turning to the right, you're pulling the right side of the lumbar vertebrae rearwards, and the left side forwards. So turning towards you, the near side, the right side is pulling back, the away side is pulling forward, like so. So imagine you can feel your vertebrae. Imagine pulling back and forward on each side to turn each of the vertebrae relative to the one below it. And again, do that when you're shifting, trying to twist on one leg. You can try it with the hip lifted or lowered, even varying the height of the pelvis as you do the twist. If you do vary the height, make sure that you can feel the position where your pelvis is level. And I'd suggest, as a finishing point or starting point, keep your pelvis level and try the twist to the weighted leg side and then to the opposite leg side. So try all variations, but then see if you can find the place where your pelvis is level, and then do it keeping your pelvis level. Final 2 exercises I'll go over in detail. One is standing on one leg with the other leg turned out, and then we'll go into it with the leg turned in. So the first exercise was working the lumbar spine forward and backwards. The second exercise, the twist, was twisting the vertebrae relative to each other. And now this one is more or less moving the hips side to side, tilting side to side. And this is actually an exercise you could do with weight on both legs, is lift one hip, drop the other hip, and then reverse it. So in this case, this hip is going down, then this hip is going up. Turn one leg out. This is to work the external rotators on this leg. And here again, the exercise is to lift the hip. Pay attention to your lumbar spine as you do it, and then lower the hip. So from the rear, lift the hip. So my lumbar spine is actually bending to the left, that way, and then lower it. And try the same thing with before you do that, so this leg is rolled out. What you could also do is pull this side of the pelvis backwards so that both legs are externally rotated. And then do the same thing, lift and lower. So from the front, with the weight on this leg, if I externally rotate this leg, the thigh moves with respect to the pelvis, and that's the external rotation. Now, to externally rotate this leg, the pelvis moves relative to the thigh, and that externally rotates this hip. So now both hips are externally rotated. You could try it as well with the standing leg hip internally rotated like that. Pull the hip forward, lift and lower. And then do the same thing. Try the same thing. Internally rotate both hips. Lift and lower. That's it. Hopefully that will give you some ideas for working on your lumbar spine, particularly if you have a slip disc. And ideally, all of these exercises are gentle, giving you control of your lower back and your hips within a comfortable range of motion. And then from there, you could work at gradually more extreme stretches, extending your range of possibility. Thank you very much.